This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Wednesday, May 1st, 2024. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
Busloads of anti-Israel protesters arrested on the campus of New York's Columbia University.
This must end now.
I'm Jeff McKay.
Former President Donald Trump fined in his hush money trial.
I think it's completely unconstitutional.
I'm Clayton Neville.
4 law officers were killed and 4 wounded after a shootout in North Carolina.
We lost some heroes.
I'm Jennifer King.
The ship that brought down a bridge in Baltimore will be removed from the collapse site soon. I'm Ed Donahue.
On Wall Street, it was an ugly close to April for stocks, but Amazon may save the day today. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
The U.S. Drug Control Agency will reclassify marijuana as a less dangerous drug. Hiya Panjwani, Washington.
The Department of Agriculture will test ground beef for bird flu particles. I'm Shelley Appler.
All ahead on America in the Morning. Anti-Israel protests on college campuses have grown across the nation. The situation at New York's Columbia University deteriorated rapidly when students broke windows and took over a building, refusing to leave until all of their demands were met. America in the Morning's Jeff McKay reports police were called in to end the siege.
Late Tuesday night, hundreds of New York City police officers in full riot gear were called in and descended onto the campus to end what had become the focal point for anti-Israel protests on college campuses. Columbia University's leadership, which received rebuke for their inaction against the pro-Palestinian protesters, tried to negotiate with them. University spokesperson Ben Chang.
University representatives engaged in good faith in dialogue with the organizers and maintained that dialogue as long as possible because this reflected our values as a community and, as we have said before, an effort to de-escalate. We were hopeful and we were disappointed when the student protesters could not reach consensus on the issues under discussion.
After the protesters ended the negotiations on Tuesday afternoon, an irate Governor Kathy Hochul said the demonstrations, which had turned violent, must end.
But when actions cross over into vandalism, harassment, destruction of property, or even violence, then the line has been crossed. They broke windows, barricaded exits, and these individuals are clearly breaking the law. There must be accountability.
Soon after, at a news conference, New York Mayor Eric Adams, himself a former police officer, said the city has no choice but to take action.
We cannot and will not allow what should be a peaceful gathering to turn into a violent spectacle that serves no purpose. We cannot wait till this situation becomes even more serious. This must end now.
The Ivy League school issued a shelter-in-place order for all on campus, and police were seen climbing through a broken window into occupied Hamilton Hall. CNN reported that there were what they described as busloads of arrests even before police entered the building, where dozens more were holed up. Despite Columbia having its own security, they have asked the New York City police to stay on campus through graduation. It's important to note that last week, the NYPD made 108 arrests on campus. The majority of those were non-students. Officials at Columbia say arrested students could face possible disciplinary action, including suspension or expulsion from the Ivy League school, depending on their actions on campus. I'm Jeff McKay.
A busy day in the hush money trial for former President Donald Trump in New York City. Our Clayton Neville has been watching the case closely.
The trial's in its early stages of testimony, with weeks expectedly left before closing arguments would start. This week began with former President Trump being fined $9,000 by Judge Juan Merchan for violating a gag order in the case related to comments Trump has made about the judge and the trial. The judge said the court won't tolerate any more violations and mentioned potential jail time if that were to happen. Trump spoke to reporters at the courthouse.
This gag order is not only unique, it's totally unconstitutional. I'm the Republican candidate for President of the United States.
Trump lawyer Alina Habba told Fox News the ruling's not fair.
I think it's completely unconstitutional. I think when you're a defendant, truthfully, these statements are the statements that you're allowed to hear from the defense, innocent until proven guilty.
The former president insisting the trial related to hush money payments allegedly made to porn star Stormy Daniels to cover up an affair as an effort to keep him out of the White House as he runs for the presidency. Trump denies doing anything wrong and is frustrated that the trial's keeping him off the campaign trail.
It's ridiculous. I'm supposed to be in Georgia. I'm supposed to be in New Hampshire. I'm supposed to be in Ohio and lots of other places. and they have me sitting here for a Biden trial. It's a Biden trial.
The former president had a couple allies in the court yesterday. His son Eric Trump was there, the first Trump family member to be at the trial since it started. And Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton was there too. He's faced his own legal issues in recent years. He posted on social media that he's in New York to sit through the trial with the former president. As far as the testimony, Keith Davidson, who represented Daniels in the hush money case, took the stand where he spent most of the day. The judges set a Thursday morning hearing surrounding more potential gag order violations against Trump, who took down social media posts about the case after he was fined yesterday. I'm Clayton Neville.
When we return on America in the Morning, update on those 4 law enforcement officers shot and stalled ship removal in Baltimore. We're back after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. Are we in store for another wild Wednesday in weather? Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
In the Northwest, a storm will keep the chill in place through the region, but the pattern shows signs of breaking today, with highs rising a bit from the mid-50s of yesterday in Seattle and Portland to closer to 60 today, then heading toward the mid-60s for Thursday. This air will be cold enough for some snow to build across the northern and central Rockies, but showers can be expected instead for places such as eastern Wyoming, with dry conditions through the southwest. We're in the midst of yet another extended period of active weather in the nation's center, with severe thunderstorms possibly producing hail, damaging winds, and some tornadoes from Texas into Minnesota and western Iowa through the night. This risk moves eastward into Thursday, with more storms expected from northeastern Texas into Wisconsin and western Illinois. These rounds of heavy storms bring a flood risk into the picture around the Arklatex area through the day on Thursday. In the east, thunderstorms linger near the southeast coast for today, with wet weather most likely from the Outer Banks through coastal Georgia and much of Florida, particularly the Florida Peninsula. There remains the risk for an afternoon thunderstorm as well for southern Louisiana, with high pressure leading to warm but dry conditions for the remainder of the region. Look for generally improving conditions from the upper Midwest through the Northeast as your Wednesday progresses, with showers likely continuing from the Minnesota border with Canada through northern Michigan through at least the morning hours before most areas break into some sunshine. For the Northeast, a departing storm brings showers to an end for most, but there remains a risk for a shower into the afternoon in New England. In Boise, Idaho, a partly sunny and cool Wednesday is in store with a high of 57. In Dallas, Texas, watch for a stray morning shower, then an afternoon thunderstorm, high 86. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
I'm John Trout. Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts: Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. Authorities in Charlotte, North Carolina gave more details after 4 law enforcement officers were killed and another 4 injured trying to serve a warrant when gunfire erupted. Here's the latest on the situation from Correspondent Jennifer King.
We lost some heroes.
Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Chief Johnny Jennings says a U.S. Marshals task force trying to serve a warrant killed a wanted felon, Terry Clark Hughes Jr., outside a Charlotte home Monday after he allegedly opened fire on them.
It was like pow, 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 pow.
Kashia Williams says it was a scary scene.
The police and everything just...
Jennings says a second wave of officers who rushed to the rescue were wounded by a second shooter firing from inside the home.
After a long standoff, we were able to clear this residence.
A high-powered rifle was seized, and police say 2 females inside were taken away after initially identifying one of them as a teenage male.
During the encounter, the male discharged a firearm, striking multiple officers. These officers requested immediate assistance. As additional officers responded to help, the gunfire continued and more officers were struck.
The fatalities included an agent from the U.S. Marshals Service, 2 veteran officers from the state's Department of Adult Correction, Sam Peloche and Alden Elliott. A 4th victim, police officer Joshua Iyer, died a few hours later at the hospital.
He's survived by his wife Ashley and his 3-year-old son.
I'm Jennifer King.
The ship that brought down the Francis Scott Key Bridge and shuttered the port of Baltimore will soon be removed. Ed Donahue reports that the first container ship since the accident has arrived at the important terminal.
The plan is to refloat and remove the dolly within roughly the next 10 days. It will mean more maritime traffic and move through the port of Baltimore. Maryland Governor Wes Moore says the focus isn't only on moving the ship.
It's not lost on anybody that we are still looking for 2 missing workers, 2 unaccounted for souls. And that search and the search for them has not changed.
In all, 6 members of a roadwork crew on the Key Bridge plunged to their deaths. Crews are working in areas where they think the 2 might be. I'm Ed Donahue.
Watching the NBA, but where? When America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. You're with America in the Morning. The Business Report is sponsored by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments has a team of specialists in investing, financial planning, estate planning, and more. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning for the first day of May trading. After that ugly sell-off yesterday for stocks to wrap up April, the Dow plunged 570 points. The major averages put their first losing month in the books since last October. Here's where the averages stand so far for the year. The Dow is up 0.5%, the S&P 500 index up 5%, and the NASDAQ is up 4%. Things are wonky on Wall Street.
Normally, April is an up month. April is traditionally the #1 month for the Dow Industrial averages, usually good for 1.5% gain. It's down 3% this month. This is a real anomaly. Usually May is a weaker month. April is usually the stronger month.
CNBC Markets editor Bob Pisani. Investors starting to worry that the Fed may not cut interest rates for a really long time. They'll be listening this afternoon to Fed Chair Jay Powell's comments. Those come at 2:30 Eastern. Amazon reported strong quarterly results after the closing bell last night. Shares were up in after-hours trading, and if that holds today, it could lift the markets higher. Some investors say the company's only been getting better at retail.
Same day, next day delivery. I mean, that's been a game changer. If you can actually rely on Amazon for more of your goods, whether it be paper towels or shaving cream, whatever, you're going to rely on it more. And scale begets scale here.
Citi's Ron Josie on CNBC. Also higher in after-hours trading last night, shares of Pinterest, but Starbucks reported disappointing quarterly results after the bell yesterday, along with chipmaker AMD.
The NBA broadcast rights. Big fight going on.
You know, basketball fans may have to switch where they watch games. There's a fight between CNBC parent company Comcast, which owns NBC Sports and Peacock, going after Warner Brothers Discovery for some of those games.
The current contract is split between Disney and Warner Brothers. Disney is all set. They got their ESPN deal set, 11 years. They get the finals. Reports have Comcast willing to pay as much as $2.5 billion for a smaller package than currently exists of games. Of course, remember that Amazon may enter the fray, or is expected to. The question becomes, is Warner Brothers Discovery, which does have matching rights, going to step up and compete here and match what appears to at least be an aggressive effort by Comcast to try to secure those NBA rights?
CNBC's David Faber. On today's watch list, that Fed Chair Q&A at 2:30 Eastern on interest rates. Plus, we get loads of earnings today from Pfizer, CVS Health, GlaxoSmithKline, Marriott, MasterCard, Kraft Heinz, and more. Tiger Woods' new apparel line, Sunday Red, launches in North America today.
CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. The feds do an about-face over marijuana. That's when America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. A plan for the federal government to reclassify marijuana would be an historic shift that would have wide ripple effects across the country, correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
The Associated Press has learned that the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration will propose to the White House Office of Management and Budget that it recognizes the medical use of cannabis and acknowledges it has less potential for abuse than some of the nation's most dangerous drugs. But it would not legalize marijuana outright for recreational use. The move comes after President Joe Biden called for a review of federal marijuana law in October 2022 and moved to pardon thousands of Americans convicted federally of simple possession of the drug. It also clears the last significant regulatory hurdle before the agency's biggest policy change in more than 50 years can take effect. Haya Panjwani, Washington.
The Department of Agriculture will test ground beef for bird flu particles, although officials say they're confident the nation's meat supply is safe. Correspondent Shelley Adler reports.
The Department of Agriculture will test ground beef for bird flu particles. Bird flu has been found in nearly 36 dairy herds across 9 states. The new testing is the latest effort by the government to track and understand how the virus is spreading among livestock. A week ago, the USDA confirmed it found non-infectious remnants of the bird flu virus in pasteurized milk. Scientists say there's no evidence to suggest people can get bird flu by consuming food that's been pasteurized or properly cooked. I'm Shelley Adler.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, May 1st, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
The NYPD moves in to remove protesters at Columbia as university protests grow across the country. I'm John Stolness.
Benjamin Netanyahu's vowing to invade the southern Gaza city of Rafah. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Another American state enacting a 6-week abortion ban. I'm Clayton Neville.
Dozens of people injured in a crash involving a city train. I'm Katie Clark with the details.
Louisiana's congressional districts. The matter is before the U.S. Supreme Court. Plus, the shrinking GOP House majority.
Jinkies, it's a new look for Scooby-Doo. I'm Kevin Carr.
And they were 50,000 strong, all inside a wall. We're back after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. At the National Weather Map, let's get you caught up to date on what will be happening across the nation today with AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
After severe thunderstorms left devastating destruction in portions of the nation's center last week, we're in the midst of yet another extended period of active weather that will continue today, with a continued risk for hail, damaging wind gusts, and tornadoes extending from south central Texas through much of Nebraska and even into southern Minnesota and western Iowa through the overnight hours. The severe risk shifts eastward for the day on Thursday, with intense storms expected from northeastern Texas into southern Wisconsin and the western suburbs of Chicago. These repeated rounds of heavy storms are expected to introduce a flood risk from southern Arkansas into east central Texas as well through the day on Thursday. Thunderstorms linger along parts of the southeast coast today as a disturbance passes out to sea, with the best risk for wet weather likely hanging on from the Outer Banks southward through mainly coastal Georgia and much of Florida, especially the Florida Peninsula. However, there is also the risk for a spotty afternoon thunderstorm popping up over southern Louisiana, with warm but dry conditions for the rest of the region under high pressure. Areas from the upper Midwest through the Northeast tend to dry out as today progresses, with storms heading out of the area, but showers will be possible through at least the morning hours before most areas break into at least a limited amount of sunshine overall. In the west, a disturbance continues to pull in chillier air through the region, with some snow even developing across the high terrain of the northern Rockies, but showers instead for the central Rockies, as far south as southwestern Colorado, with dry conditions expected for the remainder of the southwest. That's the weather across America. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist LaTroy Thornton.
Remember, you can follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and YouTube. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. I'm John Trout. New York police remove and arrest students and protesters occupying an administration building. And law enforcement presence on campus may not end for a while. John Stolness has details on the nation's anti-Israel protests.
Officers began going through Hamilton Hall last night shortly after 9 p.m. Eastern Time, arresting dozens of protesters who had been occupying that administrative building since earlier that day. In a statement, the university said they requested the NYPD's involvement to, quote, restore safety and order to our community. Earlier in the day, New York Mayor Eric Adams said law and order had to be restored.
We cannot wait till this situation becomes even more serious. This must end now.
Columbia officials are asking the NYPD to maintain a presence on campus through at least May 17th. Yesterday morning, protesters had broken into the building, an escalation of the protests that have been growing over the last 2 weeks. Speaking on Fox News last night, former President Donald Trump says he doesn't think these protesters are all students.
Well, I really think you have a lot of paid agitators, professional agitators in here, too, and I see it all over. And you know, when you see signs and they're all identical, that means they're being paid by a source.
And Mayor Adams agrees.
These external actors are obviously not students, and their presence on campus is a violation of Columbia's clearly stated policy.
Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer, the highest-ranking Jewish American serving in Congress, decrying the actions of the protesters.
Smashing windows with hammers and taking over university buildings is not free speech. It is lawlessness. And those who did it should promptly face the consequences that are not merely a slap on the wrist.
House GOP leaders like Elise Stefanik says if universities won't act to keep students safe, they will.
The university leadership has lost complete control. It is a disgrace, and it is untenable, and we as House Republicans will hold them to account.
And White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby reiterates President Biden's opposition to illegal acts conducted in the name of protests.
A small percentage of students shouldn't be able to disrupt the academic experience, the legitimate study for the rest of the student body.
But the unrest is not just happening in Columbia. 79 people were jailed after police and protesters clashed at the University of Texas, Austin. Authorities say many of those arrested were not students. Police arrested 25 people at California State Polytechnic University in Humboldt, ending a week-long occupation of an administrative building. Police called into Portland State University after property damage there, and protesters vandalized a famous statue of George Washington at GW University in Washington this week. With commencement taking place in the next week or two at most schools, universities are feeling the pressure to get their campuses under control or risk canceling their end-of-year celebrations. I'm John Stolness.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu doubles down on plans to invade Rafah, even as ceasefire talks with Hamas move ahead. The Biden administration has sought peace in the region, but purportedly will not stop Israel from getting their hostages back. More from Washington and correspondent Sagar Magani.
For the sake of the people of Gaza, for the sake of the hostages and their families in Israel, and for the sake of the region and the wider world, I strongly encourage the government of Israel and the Hamas leadership to reach now an agreement.
Netanyahu says with or without a deal, the Israeli military will move into Rafah, where hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are sheltering, and which he says is Hamas's last major stronghold.
They must do what's necessary to take care of these civilians that are not combatants and move them out of the battle space and take care of them wherever you move them to. And you have to allow sufficient time to do that appropriately. And we've had that conversation a number of times.
The U.S. has warned Israel against any Rafah offensive that puts civilians at risk.
We don't want to see a major ground operation in Rafah. Certainly, we don't want to see operations that haven't factored in the safety and security of those 1.5 million folks trying to seek refuge down there. And we've conveyed that to our Israeli counterparts, certainly privately, absolutely publicly, and nothing's changed about that.
White House National Security spokesman John Kirby says Israel's worked in good faith on a proposal that would essentially include a trade in the pause for fighting for Hamas releasing hostages.
There is a fresh proposal on the table. It is a good proposal. We are waiting to hear Hamas's reaction to it. The Israelis work closely with us and diligently to get this fresh proposal in place. And it's really important that Hamas act on it, accept it.
Netanyahu is under pressure from hardline cabinet members to reject any deal that might squash a Rafah invasion. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Here at home, Florida's 6-week abortion ban takes effect today. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports on the impact of the new law from the Sunshine State.
The law bans abortion in Florida after 6 weeks of pregnancy. Critics point out, though, that many women don't know they're pregnant at that point. Up until now, Florida was enforcing a 15-week abortion ban. Stephanie Lorraine Panero is the executive director of the Florida Access Network and says there was a major jump in scheduled procedures in recent weeks in anticipation of the ban.
This month, we served 250 people with close to $80,000 of abortion access support.
She spoke with NBC6 in South Florida.
That is double what we spend every month.
Florida was serving as a state where women who live in states with strict abortion bans could go to have the procedure. That's changing now, though. According to Kelly Flynn, she's the CEO of A Woman's Choice and spoke with NBC News.
We're looking at the Southeast completely like it's an abortion desert now.
State Rep Mike Beltran is one of several lawmakers behind the 6-week ban and also spoke with NBC.
We're a conservative state. We should not be allowing abortions, and we certainly shouldn't be providing abortion tourism for other states in the South.
The Florida law makes it a felony to perform or actively participate in an abortion after 6 weeks of pregnancy. It does have exceptions for rape, incest, and human trafficking up to 15 weeks. There's also an exception if the mother's life is at risk. The new law in Florida, the latest implication of the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade and return decisions on abortion to the states. I'm Clayton Neville.
The downside of worker pay increases when America in the Morning continues after these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. I'm John Trout. Dozens of people injured as a bus from the University of Southern California collides with a Los Angeles commuter train. Katie Clark has details.
In the Exposition Park neighborhood of Los Angeles, around 150 people were riding on the Los Angeles Metro train Tuesday afternoon when it collided with a shuttle bus for the University of Southern California, which is located nearby. Los Angeles City Fire Department arrived and treated over 36 people on the scene before they were released. This woman riding on the Metro train when the crash happened spoke to KBC7 Los Angeles and describes her injuries.
I got thrown from my chair to the other chair, so my whole left side is sore.
2 people on board the USC shuttle bus were seriously hurt in the crash, including the driver. Both are in stable condition. In total, 16 people were transported to local hospitals. LA City Fire Department Public Information Officer Captain Adam Vankerpen speaking to KBC7 Los Angeles.
This is what we call walking wounded. They were able to walk off the train. We set up triage areas where our paramedics and our EMTs were able to evaluate them.
The LAPD are still investigating the cause of the crash. I'm Katie Clark.
Louisiana will not be getting a new majority black House congressional district, at least for now. Correspondent Ben Thomas reports.
A panel of 3 federal judges has rejected a new congressional map for Louisiana that gives the state a second majority black district. In a 2-1 ruling, the judges said the map violates the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment because race was the predominant factor driving its creation. The decision fuels new uncertainty about district boundaries as the state prepares for congressional elections this fall. And Louisiana's Attorney General vows the state will take the issue to the Supreme Court, saying it amounts to federal judges drawing maps. I'm Ben Thomas.
Over to Washington, D.C. and the U.S. Congress, where the GOP's extremely narrow House majority just became razor thin. On Tuesday, New York's 26th congressional district held a special election to fill an open seat vacated when former Democrat Congressman Brian Higgins resigned in February. New York State Senator Tim Kennedy defeated Republican Gary Dixon in the upstate New York district that includes parts of Buffalo and Niagara Falls. When Kennedy is sworn in, House Republicans will hold 217 seats, while Democrats have 213, with 5 House positions currently vacant. That'll leave the chamber's GOP majority at just 1, leaving no margin of error for party line agenda items. A new report shows worker pay is rising, but as correspondent Rita Foley reports, that may not necessarily be good news.
Compensation was up 1.2% in the January through March quarter. But, and here comes the not-so-good news, when pay goes up especially fast, it increases the labor costs for companies. And you can probably figure out what many of them do. Yeah, they raise their prices. And that's not all. All of this can lead to higher inflation. The Federal Reserve Chair and other officials have now started to back away from signaling that the Fed will necessarily cut interest rates this year. You've probably noticed those big price increases for rent, car insurance, and health care. Well, they've kept inflation stubbornly above the Fed's 2% inflation target. I'm Rita Foley.
America in the Morning continues this Wednesday with Robert Workman and a check of sports.
NBA playoffs, Tyrese Maxey saved the 76ers season with 46 points, 7 of them in the final 25 seconds of regulation as they nipped the Knicks 112-106 in overtime.
Season's on the line. I mean, I trust my work. I trust what I've done all my life and just try to get to a spot and raise up and knock a shot down.
New York leads 3-2. Bucks rose up on the Pacers 115-92. Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard both out with leg injuries, but 29 apiece from Chris Middleton and Bobby Portis got the job done. Indiana still ahead 3-2 in that one. And after getting routed twice in Orlando, the Cavaliers clipped the Magic 104-103 to take a 3-2 series lead. Stanley Cup playoffs, Hurricanes got 3 in the third to blow by the Islanders and wrap up their Eastern Conference series 4-1. Avalanche ousted the Jets. Mikko Rantanen, who scored 42 goals this season, got his first 2 of the playoffs to break open a tie game in the third. Colorado advances in 5. Maple Leafs shaded the Bruins on a Matthew Nice goal in overtime. Boston up 3-2, and the Predators edged the Canucks. Vancouver still up 3-2. Baseball, the Twins tripped the White Sox 6-5 for their 9th straight win. Red Sox blanked the Giants, a combo 4-hitter for Cooper Criswell and crew. That's Boston's league-leading 6th shutout this season. Brewers battered the Rays. Willie Adames with a 3-run shot. The game punctuated by a bench-clearing fracas in the 8th inning. Mariners fought off the Braves, in a baseball sense. Orioles down the Yankees. Astros outlasted the Guardians in 10 innings. Victor Caratini sent everybody home happy with a 2-run tater. Marlins climbed past the Rockies in 10 to snap a 7-game skid. Phillies got 2 homers in the 9th to rally past the Angels. Mike Trout facing knee surgery for a torn left meniscus. He's out until at least June. Cardinals and Tigers split a doubleheader. Wins for the Mets, A's, Rangers, Padres, and Royals. And Christian Walker's 2-run walk-off gave the Diamondbacks the win over the Dodgers in the late game, delayed 2 hours because of a swarm of bees behind home plate. That's Wednesday Sports.
Thank you, sir. When we return on America in the Morning, something to this kid's fear of monsters. After these messages. Welcome back. This is America in the Morning. The annual Tony nominations are out, and entertainment correspondent Margie Zaraletta reports on the best of Broadway.
Hell's Kitchen will compete for Best Musical against Illinois' Suffs, Water for Elephants, and The Outsiders.
The nominees for Best Play are Jaja's African Hair Braiding by Jocelyn Bio, Mary Jane by Amy Herzog, Mother Play by Paula Vogel, Prayer for the French Republic by Joshua Harmon, Stereophonic by David Ajmi. And soon we're humming along.
Daniel Radcliffe gets his first Tony nomination for his role in Merrily We Roll Along. Other familiar faces with nominations include Rachel McAdams, Jessica Lange, Amy Ryan, Jim Parsons, Eddie Redmayne, and Hillary Rodham Clinton, who gets a producer nomination for Suffs. I'm Archie Zaraletta.
Jinkies, an old cartoon, is being remade into a live-action series. Kevin Carr has the story.
Zoinks, a classic cartoon, is getting a live-action treatment on Netflix. The streaming giant is nearing a deal with Berlanti Productions to revive the 1969 Hanna-Barbera cartoon Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? As a live-action hour-long drama. The Scooby-Doo property has seen plenty of iterations over the years. Most recently, the edgy, adult-oriented animated series Velma has seen 2 seasons on Max.
This is my story, told my way. Jinkies!
2 live-action movies were made in 2002 and 2004, starring Sarah Michelle Gellar as Daphne, Freddie Prinze Jr. as Fred, and Matthew Lillard as Shaggy.
How groovy is this, man?
A made-for-TV film, Scooby-Doo: The Mystery Begins, was also made in 2009 with a mostly unknown cast. More recently, the computer-animated Scoob dropped onto streaming during the pandemic, and a sequel was famously killed well into post-production by Max last year.
I guess our new movie is an origin story. Every hero should have one. I want The Rock to play me. Never gonna happen.
There are few details about this new Scooby-Doo, though it is being developed by Josh Applebaum and Scott Rosenberg. They brought to life Netflix's live-action version of Cowboy Bebop, which received middling reviews from critics and fans. Berlanti Productions has a string of successes on Netflix, including You, Dead Boy Detectives, and The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I'm Kevin Carr.
Finally, today, a 3-year-old child had recently seen the Disney movie Monsters, Inc. and told her mother that she thought she was hearing monsters inside her bedroom walls. The girl's mother, of course, tried to dissuade her fears, even giving her a bottle of water and telling her daughter it was monster spray. However, soon the mother also started to hear noises in her child's bedroom and wondered if there really were monsters inside the walls after all. Days later, Ashley Klass saw some things buzzing around her chimney and thought her daughter may be onto something. So she called a pest control expert who used a thermal camera and to their surprise found a colony of bees inside the bedroom wall. Beekeepers were then brought in and they wound up removing over 50,000 flying critters, including a queen bee, inside 100 pounds of honeycomb. It cost the homeowner about $20,000 to remove the bees and repair the damage, and no more monster complaints from the kid. America in the Morning for Wednesday, May 1st, 2024 is produced by Jeff McKay. Senior producer Kevin Delaney. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.